Before AI got popular, I started a YouTube channel and I made a video about a year ago where I corrected code that was generated by AI. You can make a video where you correct code that was generated by AI and describe why you make certain decisions. Today, I can revisit the video that I made a year ago, and I can use my insights gained in the past year to reflect on not only my video production process, but also the contents of that video. If you don't have a video that's a year old, you can't describe how your insights from that video have changed. You can just describe the stuff that you've done in a year, and I did that a year ago too. If you can edit videos, then you can convey information as quickly as a video can, and videos can include text, and we can screenshot videos and plug that screenshot into ChatGPT to generate transcripts or notes or descriptions of what's in the video. If you want to be a software engineer, practice using media. Develop a style and write software that enhances your style, or extends it, if that's a better word. Interviewing is a different skill than the actual job that hires you. There are growing generations of people who haven't really had experience with jobs that want them to succeed. What often happens is jobs find somebody who is really good at interviewing, change their interviewing process to accommodate the skills of this interviewer, realize that person isn't qualified, so to speak, for the job, and then fire them without changing the expectations of their interview process. Systemically, this means that all of us are following an interview process that is not pro-human and has been getting more competitive despite our abilities to communicate with one another decreasing. If I don't watch the shows that the people around me watch, we're not going to share the same emotional language because the patterns that we've learned to recognize aren't going to be similar. This is kind of the problem with the American workforce right now. It's not a problem of the media necessarily. It's cultural that we don't provide room for this kind of development to happen. If you can contextualize the intent of development as an entity that is trying to grow, if you can match the pace of the organization that you're trying to apply to, you can redefine what the interview process looks like. It makes a lot more sense to hire the obvious candidate than it does to spend hours of everyone's time not doing that. Although, from a team perspective, if you do have a solid hiring process, you can learn more about how all of you work together. So, technically, regardless of if you hire someone as a company, you are incentivized to have a hiring process active, at the very least, so you have a tangible reason for multiple people to observe the same phenomenon. If multiple people evaluate the same set of skills and compare their understanding of the criteria used to accept or reject that set of skills or rank them in a matrix of other considerations, if you get your team looking at the same thing, then you can learn how they see things, and that can be very helpful for navigating specific projects in the future. This is the space that we need to try to heal. Most companies don't need more code, they need more people who understand what they're trying to be. It's pretty challenging to get good at recognizing the nuanced intricacies of code while also believing that code is worthless. So a lot of software engineers enter businesses with a misconception of where their value comes. The advantage of software engineers is that they can quickly describe a new aspect of your business to a lot of people consistently and verifiably. Then you can interpret these insights and respond meaningfully to things that are happening in the current time. If you imagine being in a jungle, software engineers are kind of like having reflexes, more like having a nervous system that can translate your reflexes into impulses that travel specifically to your brain, so your brain can make quick and meaningful decisions. Your QA team is your reflexes, and also your part of it's the customer facing side, the people who interact with the layer of interaction. Anyway, if you're a software engineer, build projects that tell the story of how you went deep into the language so you understand it philosophically very well, and you can apply that to the relevant business goals of an organization that is conceptualizing the kind of development, the kind of personal development that that organization is looking for. The people that you talk to are going to understand the personal development of people like them. So as you're describing the needs of a company, consider your audience and consider how to contextualize what they're looking for with respect to their own development. For example, did this company just get an expensive sports car it doesn't know how to drive? And can the person that you're talking to relate to the grievances of trying to develop a firm understanding on what it means to have these new responsibilities? Then as a software engineer, your job is to translate this understanding of the current system into a meaningful and consistent metaphor that hundreds or thousands of people can regularly interact with. Technically, you don't need to be good, you just need to be convincing for a long time, which is a skill. I think that it's bad that the software engineering industry rewards convincing mediocrity, but that's just me. If you want a high software engineering salary, it's perfectly fine to be mediocre once you've paid your dues in learning the language and describing how to disintegrate from it. And also add in AI and the intent of stabilizing relationships with code and Git and version control beyond Git. So what are the strategies that the content team is going to use for version control that is different than Git? Also, what is your relationship to the content team? Who exists? Which people are redundant? And which redundancies are useful for which organization sizes? This very much gets into electrical engineering if you start to formalize the abstractions. This is why I recommend going to college, so you can know this stuff. This is also why I'm starting Squashy.college, so I can teach the stuff. Let me know if you're interested in that, developing. If you can teach people and you can start a business, you can start a business teaching people how to start a business. This is what my dad did, and this is how I learned business. If you record yourself starting a business, you can create marketing materials telling the story of how you started your business. If you make this entertaining, then you can sell the stories that you tell about how you started your business. This is the premise behind lore.land. If you can develop websites, you can develop multiple websites, and if you have a strategy for developing content, then you can release content on multiple websites. You can tell a story about how you run a business, creating content for the websites that you use to teach people how to build websites so they can start businesses, teaching other people how to start businesses, building websites for content creators. Then you can tease this ecosystem for however long. Telling the story about how you got started doing all this stuff is marketing. I've already set up this marketing ecosystem, and you can pay me for me to market your stuff. Otherwise, I'm still working on my YouTube video flow. Now AI can generate code, but AI can't care about features. You can care about features. It's a good idea to have somebody who can focus on quality assurance and somebody who can focus on development in separate threads. This is because the kinds of questions that quality assurance needs to ask are different than the kinds of processes that developers find the most beneficial for maintaining rhythm. So don't fire your QA people and don't fire your developers. These people are going to have conversations with each other and with the code base and with QA systems, QA tools. These people are going to have the embodied knowledge that you need to stabilize across economies. The kinds of decisions that you make when you're focusing on quality are different than the kinds of decisions that you make when you're focusing on short-term money. Every single system that can be described with logic can be described with structured language, and this is software development. HTML is a declarative programming language. CSS is a style sheet language. JavaScript is a multi-paradigm language, which includes functional programming, object-oriented programming. React is a blend between declarative and procedural. There are a lot of ways that you can learn to structure logic to embody this kind of cognition. On TikTok, you've seen me create and organize thousands of paintings or doodles or whatever. Now I can spend 2025 just going through the content that's organized and also organizing the content that isn't organized yet, and have that be a sustainable content strategy. This is sustainable because I need to do it anyway. And I don't need to do all of the work of establishing a clear connection to how my brand relates to an embodied world. The amount of time that you spend on this is up to you. I've been building my brand for the past 9 years. You've seen this particular marketing arc go on from August 2023-ish. That's when I started making TikToks, I believe. You've seen me develop this intentional eye towards quality, which I can describe for a variety of roles. I've been focusing on 13 particular stratifications of intent. And I oscillate these stratifications of intent across 5 dimensions, which you've seen me describe as boon, bane, bone, bonk, and honk. Addition, opposition, continuity, chaos, and harmony. Like cocktails, all of these dimensions blend together to form different intents that are received differently by different people. The direction that media has evolved recently is that there are a lot more dimensions that can convincingly describe attentional motion. There are more structures that can convince you to pay attention to only them. These will form comfortable rhythms that aren't necessarily invested in your relationship to the people around you. Some people have had a very different experience on TikTok because they don't focus on creation, they only scroll. I've appreciated the incentives that TikTok has provided as a platform for me to create content and develop a relationship to the reasons why it's structured the way that I present it. And going live with a variety of people who have a variety of relationships that I meet has been a really cool experience as well. As I build my ecosystem, I'm going to be considering the incentives and the community structures and the ways that those relate to community knowledge. So as I build these structures, who else knows how this works? And how do I make sure that if that structure is forgotten, the system changes form? And I'm planning on maintaining that thread, that blockchain, so to speak, with lore.land, which is going to be a corollary to software development that is focused on having connecting novelists with software companies to contextualize the intent of particular user paths with a variety of dimensions of mindfulness towards the implications of dissociating narrative intent from practical utility. Last thing I'll say in this video is that a lot of people have very intense schooling trauma, and this comes up in their professional relationships. It changes the ways that they engage with group projects. And the alternative to this isn't for everyone to disintegrate from the public schooling system. It's to describe how these systems relate to each other across media. It takes a village to raise people who are constantly developing. And as we find language to stabilize and embody, we are the village, and we are stabilizing the development of everyone who has experiences that we do or don't relate to. Everything we can say about people who aren't us could be said about us, for valid reasons or not valid reasons. So basically, golden rule, wrapping this up with a nod to web content accessibility guidelines. Those are pretty cool.
Putting the lyrics in this chapter, in this scene, add to the scene.
What if authors had a website for each ISBN they had, and then they could add supplemental content per page? I think that'd be cool, because then you could have multiple versions of a book and people could experience it as you reflect on what you wrote years before. My assumption is that in the time that I've gained 1,500 followers on TikTok, some people probably appreciate the perspective that I have, so I can focus on finding a rhythm that is really easy for me to maintain. Now it's really easy for me to speak off the cuff about something that I'm intentionally trying to do towards building this complex ecosystem. And I stumble across things that I just stumble across words. So there are things that I wish that I could change about each particular video that I create. Now I can with AI. It's possible for me to record a lot of footage and then plug that back into some sort of scripting system and then replicate the ways that I've produced speech before. I think this is a cool idea because I don't know if I'll always be able to access language production the way that I can. And I like the idea of people who understand the proper mappings being able to draw upon a lot of resources. As an artist, it is my responsibility to bring up the world that I've been creating, illustrating, and developing an artistic relationship with other people to make sure that our technology doesn't grow too far into our imaginations. How do I say that? It's good to use technology to imagine. It is also good to have grounded imagination. When we have very talented people who can use technology and choose not to, then there's ample room for people to develop into understanding how that relationship formed. Yesterday, the videos that I recorded in this format, the videos totaled 22 minutes, I believe. I think I might have recorded one after that I didn't stitch. Those are on my website at squashy.com/video. There's just one video where if you press the play button, there are subtitles that are animated. This is the first time that I'm describing this topic, this concept, so I don't have language for it quite, but there is a video that synthesizes the direction that I'm going with media. If you want to embed your videos on your site with subtitles or interactions timed along with them, you should contact me. hello@squashy.com. On YouTube, I'm going to be scripting and performing my videos in a more predictable format. But across my sites, I'm probably just going to add content to keep the time, like TikTok.